Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Michelle Vandepas, welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. So happy to have you on today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a bio here. You're an author, you're a TEDx speaker, you're a business coach. You're also co-founder of GracePoint Publishing. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. The innovative, and that in the publishing house is very collaborative. Partnership publishing is what you call it. So we're going to ask you questions around that. You serve speakers, coaches, service professionals, business professionals. You do personal development, even quantum healing stuff. So lots there. I would sum it up that you're very inspirational in the business realm and in the leadership realm. I'd say you're an inspirational, a voice of inspiration, and also not just inspiration, but also how to get things done. And so today we're going to be talking about purpose, and then we'll kind of blend these other things in, like living life on purpose, right?
Let's
So
do
how,
it. That
so how
sounds
do,
fun.
so how do we live life on purpose? And we'll just jump off there. So you've worn a lot of different hats in your career. You're also, I think, a 10-time foster parent. Is that right? So you lead in many different areas.
Yeah.
And we were talking just a little bit pre-show, and so let's just jump into kind of that conversation we were having pre-show about you feel that there's a lot of people out in the world right now, myself being one of these. So I'll check this box as well, that have something inside of them that's wanting to get out, and some of us are stuck in that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So I talk about this in my TEDx talk as well, which is, are you procrastinating or are you incubating? Right. Sometimes we have something that's nudging at us. And I'm just going to use the book as an example, but it could be anything. It could be traveling to India. It could be having kids. It could be quitting your job, whatever it is. Right.
I think I've done those last three, actually. Now, I've checked all those boxes. I've
Oh,
traveled to India. I've quit my job a couple
no,
couple different times, right?
moved cross country.
And I moved across country. So I got all those. So we're speaking the same language. Yeah.
So if you have, and we'll just say an idea for a book, like a lot of people come to me and say, God, everyone says I should be writing a book. I keep thinking I should be writing a book. I keep saying, oh man, I could put that in my book, right? First thing that I recommend people do is to tune in to see whether you really are procrastinating. Like, is this something you're really supposed to do? It's yours to do, and you just need to freaking get it done somehow. Usually,
Right.
or is it that you're incubating? It's not quite time yet. You haven't flushed out all your thoughts. You know, someday you're going to quit your job. Someday you're going to go to India, but maybe it's not time. Maybe you got 3 babies under 3 at home, and it's not time to just quit your job and take off to India, right? There are seasons and cycles, and there's discernment. And we have a lifetime, hopefully, to get all these things done that call us to do and to live purpose and to live passionately. And so that's the first step, I always say. Is it yours to do, and is it yours to do now? And if you start getting some adrenaline or fear or heart palpitation, probably is yours to do now, because that's the resistance. If you get, it's not really mine to do now, and I'll recircle back next year, that's probably you're still in incubation mode around it, right? It's that when we ask ourselves the question, we usually know the right answer. And when something comes up for us, we feel triggered or we feel resistance, that's usually the sign that, yes, it's ours to do. It's probably ours to do now. And we have some internal resistance for some reason.
And how do we get past that internal resistance?
Well, one of the ways is to not try to figure out all the outcomes. So back to the book analogy, but even like traveling to India, which is I've been and I'm going again next year. Try to figure out what the end result's going to be. So I know I'm supposed to write a book, but I don't know how to launch. I don't know how to get a book cover done. What if nobody buys it? Like, we go to the end result rather than be in the moment. What's my next step? What's my first step? And then we try to figure out all the pieces in between. I'm all for goal setting and having a vision for your life, but life takes these weird twists and turns. And so
Yes.
even if we have these are the 27 steps that's going to get me to where I want to be in 3 years, usually it never works that way. Right.
No. In fact, I will say that it literally never works out. It's not even a a guess, right? It never
Right.
works the exact way we plan it.
So my recommendation is you say, where do I want to be in 3 years? Yes, I want to write a book. And then you work on the steps now that are
Mm,
right in front of you right now and allow yourself to be open to the magic of the universe, right? We
mhm,
get led, things happen, people die, people get married, new people come into our life, people drop off, opportunities open up, and we follow life's path.
mhm.
Actually, if we're not trying to control it all, there's a better outcome than we could have imagined, usually, not always.
Right.
And so, for the book analogy, what usually stops people is they're trying to figure out everything that, or they write something, they go, well, I can't put that in the book. That threw my third cousin, second removed under the bus. And then they
Mhm,
rip it up or
mhm.
delete. He and it's gone. And I'm like, who said that was going to end up in the book? Just, just start writing. Just put that down on papers for your eyes only at the beginning. Nobody else has to read it.
Well, very cool. So you're coach, publisher, got 10 kids you fostered, is that right?
I did. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing in and of itself. That had to teach you some things, I would think.
Yeah, it taught me some things. It taught me probably a lot of empathy that I
Mm,
didn't know I didn't have
mhm.
for. You never know. I mean, we hear this all. You never know what someone else is going through. You never
Right.
know till you walk in someone else's shoes. And then, you bring in a 5-year-old kid who's like standing there with a knife ready to stab you because he's so angry about the world. And you
Mm,
realize this kid's been through some
mhm,
stuff, right?
mhm,
So I learned a great deal of empathy for other people. I learned that very often our government systems really suck
mhm,
and they don't know how to fix it or want to fix it, or there's so much bureaucracy, it's not going to get fixed.
mhm.
And I think I knew that before, but I was in the middle of it and that really sucks. And I don't see it really being that much better 20 years later.
Right. Kinda is what it is, and that's why it takes good people like yourself to kinda come in and bridge that gap, right?
When, you know, I don't know how much I really help.
Mm,
Like, does it really help to pull a kid out of
mm,
a situation just because the government thinks they should?
right. Yep.
And that's a whole nother
I was
conversation.
gonna say that almost sounds like a whole not-for-profit organization right there that you just said.
Yeah.
Um, I like to play this game. If you if you only had one message to give to the rest of the world, now over 8 billion people, and that grows daily, that are occupying it passed 8 billion last year or the beginning of this year. So there's 8 billion people on the face of the earth. If all of them got a little player, and on that little player was just your message to them, that was your legacy, but also your way to pay it forward. What would you want that message to be to those other 8 billion people?
Well, you're already living your purpose. You're already worthy on the planet. You're already making a difference on the planet. You may not feel it, know it, understand it. You don't have to chase it. You're here. We love you. You are loved. And if you're having a hard time, just hang in there because it will someday make sense.
Mm, it always does eventually make sense, doesn't it?
It's-
Even
Well,
eventually.
I mean, I don't know. I'm still living, but I'm
But the cycles of sense,
cycles.
right? It kind of
Um,
you go through those periods where things don't make sense.
and
There's
now
lots of confusion, and then at some point there's some clarity, and it may be years or decades, but at some point there's some
at
clarity.
that point, it all comes around and makes sense. And there's so many people who just are feeling anxious and overwhelmed with the world right now. And I would just say, breathe, take care of yourself, do what you can, pat yourself on the back, do what you're here to do. And if you don't know what that is, just be.
Mm. I love it, love it. Well, that's why I do this podcast, week in, week out, this Bright Vibe podcast, because sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Should I continue to do it or not?" And then every time I meet wonderful people like you, and I'm like, yeah, of course, this is what we do. We put out bright vibes. We put out good energy into the internet space and into the world in general because we all need inspiration. We all need kind of one hand up and one hand down, right? We need to be lifted up and we need to lift up others. And that's I'm so happy to have met you and had time to talk with you today because definitely that's what you're doing with your purpose is, kind of lifting others up. You're helping people tell their stories, coaching them, directly if that's what is needed in that situation to kind of move them on to their next step of their purpose, right? Our purpose is always unfolding, forever unfolding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, this has been so much fun, and I wanted to talk about India, so maybe we'll do that next time,
Yeah, India. Yeah, I've been there a time or two. It was good. It was always good. It wasn't always fun,
right?
but it was always good. And like anything else that you learn, there's the lingering effects over a lifetime of when there's kind of some of those, oh, that's what they were talking about. Didn't make sense then, but it kind of starts to make sense now, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, what part of India are you headed back to?
Hyderabad.
Hyderabad. Hyderabad.
Hyderabad, thank you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Actually, my husband and I are gonna go do some Panchakarma.
Uh-huh.
The first time I went, it was pure vacation, went to Goa and Taj Mahal, and did all
Uh-huh.
that fun stuff.
Right.
Where do you go when you go to India?
I typically, and I haven't been for, gosh, well, last time it would have been about 8 years ago I went, but I would go to, north of Chennai, which is on the southeast coast, and go up about an hour to a call it an ashram meditation thing, if you whatever you it was but a spiritual place to sit with monks and learn from monks, and so it was always very interesting and impactful, and yes, if you've never been to India, I was never called to go to India. It was just that's where the monks were. And
Right.
so it wasn't like I was like, "Yay, let's go to India." It was more of, "Oh shit, I have to go to India." Right? By choice. But
Well, I love how you said it wasn't always fun, but enlightening.
yeah.
I
I
feel like that with business. I feel like that with life. I feel
Right.
like that with traveling most places these days, because traveling itself,
It's
right, isn't always
challenging.
fun, but it's part of life. And India was like so overwhelming
Oh, yeah.
and so great and so not great and
Yeah.
so everything, right?
If definitely for myself, sounds like for you as well, if you want to grow spiritually, personally, if you want to find out where your anger is and where your grace is, right? I mean, I, the first couple of times that was my experience. After that, it was kind of like anything else. You kind of get used to the culture but if you want your senses to come alive, you just fly into India and then you just walk outside and your senses will be totally sight, sound, smells, temperatures. All of a sudden you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I could take in this much information all at once, right?
I think we're in sensory overload
Uh,
now. And those of us kind of
right.
sheltered in the US, yeah.
Yeah, I saw many things in India, good and not so good.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember coming back to the States thinking, gosh, we have it really good. Gosh, we just have it really as far as the creature comforts, cars and roads and police and, just safety in general. We do live very sheltered in comparison to a lot of other situations in a lot of other countries.
The piece that's really stuck with me is how spotless clean all the temples were
Uh-huh. Yep.
and the spiritual places and even the tourist places.
Mhm.
And it's like you take the step, it's like not clean.
Right. And when we
Right.
say not clean, like not clean,
Like
like
dirt and mud
and trash and yeah, oh yeah.
and then like one step.
Yeah, yeah,
All of India felt like that to me.
yeah,
Just position, I can't say the word, of polarities
yep,
and just such extremes.
yep.
Such extremes, yeah.
Yeah, I remember coming in, I think we'd spent about 10 days kind of at the temple and you're not wearing shoes and your feet are always dirty and, it's just lots of stuff. And then we walked into the hotel, the Taj, I think is the chain over there that's kind of the nice right? And I walked into the Taj, and it was like re-entering something, and it was almost as shocking as the
Yeah,
going to the dirt was almost as challenging as coming out of it. It was like oh my gosh, I just want to go back outside and take my shoes off and walk in the dirt. It was just
Yeah.
it was like so stark to your point, such opposites. It was like, oh my, there's air conditioning and there's like real food and there's, right, there's people that are waiting to pick up my bags. It was just very strange. It was just,
Yeah, and but the people were fabulous,
yes,
most
people are
part.
always
I mean, we
very
had a
nice. Yeah, yep. That is true. Well, yes. So yes, if you decide that you want to talk about your India venture when you come back, let us know. We'll be happy to have you come back on. We'll just do a whole piece on India
and yeah, and finding your purpose and
and finding your purpose. Yeah, definitely. Well, Michelle, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. If you want to get a hold of Michelle, michellecoaches.com is how you get a hold of her. And we certainly appreciate you coming on today. And we look forward to any of the adventures or anything else you'd like to share in the future.
yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE Vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.